Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Trust the Trailblazers, launching your best CTV campaign presented by MNTN and Martech. Before we begin, if you have any audio issues, click the audio icon on your screen to enable your audio. And if you have any viewing issues, you can use the Q&A section as always to communicate with us at any time. You can also send questions and comments directly to our speaker just by using the Q&A. Now let's get to our presentation. Joining us today is Jon Zucker, Senior Product Marketing Manager at MNTN. Jon, thanks so much for joining us. I will turn things over to you.
Thanks, Cynthia. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at MNTN. And in my role, I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to speak with advertisers and really learn what they're doing to successfully deliver down funnel outcomes with connected TV. And so that's what I'd like to share today. I'd like to talk about the things that I've learned, and our team has also done some incredible analysis about the tactics that top marketers use to deliver the most effective site traffic conversions and return on ad spend with connected TV. I hope today is helpful for everybody. We tried to make it as actionable as possible to be as respectful of your time as we can. So here's the agenda. Today we'll start with what do top advertisers know about connected TV. Next, we'll move into how to best launch your connected TV campaigns to achieve success as quickly as possible. Next, we'll talk about how to optimize your creative for success, both efficiently and effectively. And finally, we'll walk through a quick case study of a real MNTN customer who took our best practices into account and delivered some really fantastic results as a result of that. So to kick things off, today, again, we're going to learn from top advertisers. Many people on this call might know, but connected TV nowadays is as easy to launch as any new social platform with the right technology behind it. That said, we want to make it even easier to be successful as soon as you can. So we took a look at our top 25% of advertisers on our platform to see what they're doing so we could pass that knowledge along to everybody here. So the first lesson we learned is really don't delay your launches. So being successful on connected TV starts with your campaign setup. And there are benefits to launching both prospecting campaigns targeting new users and retargeting campaigns targeting previous site visitors and past purchasers at the same time from the get-go. Now, a lot of advertisers will come and I'll hear the same piece of feedback. I want to use connected TV to just drive new users to my site and deliver new conversions. And that is absolutely important. And I 100% agree that you should do that. But it's only missing, or it is missing, just a piece of the puzzle. Advertisers who really have a goal of growth, so growing your business as quickly as possible, delivering as much revenue as possible, and achieving growth, they have to think in kind of two different parts of their brain. One is net new users, net new traffic, net new conversions, and net new revenue. The other is lifetime value of those customers. So how do you take your returning customers and make sure that they are as valuable as they can be over time? That second piece is really critical. So we've seen that a study from Bain & Capital showed that returning customers spend 67% more than new customers every single time, or on average, I should say. And the second is a study from McKinsey showed that just a 5% increase in customer retention correlates with a 25% increase in company profitability. So lifetime value is just not something that you can afford to not think about when you're launching a new channel. So in addition to launching prospecting and retargeting at the same time, it's really also important to not wait and see about retargeting. So we have some advertisers who will come and say, I want to start with prospecting and I'll launch retargeting later. And there is a distinct opportunity cost to doing that. So we did some analysis. We took a look at over 620 advertisers who launched in 2022 on MNTN, launching connected TV campaigns. And we compared those who launched just prospecting to those who started with prospecting and retargeting to those who waited about halfway through their first 90 days to launch prospecting and retargeting, or to launch retargeting to their prospecting campaigns. And so expectedly, those who started with both prospecting and retargeting delivered 27% higher site traffic than those who just did prospecting alone. At the same time, they delivered about twice the amount of return on ad spend after 90 days, just by having net new customers and also upselling their existing customers. If you take a look at those who waited about halfway through those 90 days, they still outperformed people who didn't launch retargeting at all, but the impact did come at a cost. So the difference is they delivered 17% more site traffic versus that 27%. And they delivered 52% more return on ad spend versus that 2x return on ad spend. So this is really why we recommend having that growth mindset from the get-go. The next thing to keep in mind is that good things take time. So while the path of success is up and to the right, it's important to know that performance accelerates over time. So we really recommend, by looking at our data, to give your campaigns 75 to 90 days to get up to speed. This allows enough time for delivery and optimization. So every AI optimization engine that you'll hear different platforms talk about, they need input data in order to learn, identify patterns, and get better and become more efficient. And so in order to give it enough data, you need to be able to deliver site traffic, deliver subsequent conversions, give that initial data time to collect, inform, and get better. So we've seen that within 75 days, return on ad spend actually accelerates significantly throughout that period. And by the 90-day mark, your CPA is actually going to decrease substantially over every 2 to 4 weeks. So here's an example of that analysis. So we took a look at 234 advertisers who launched prospecting and retargeting and had a cost per acquisition goal last year. And we saw that without making adjustments to their campaigns, their cost per acquisition became significantly more efficient as time went on. So from day 7 to 14, they saw on average a 34% decrease in their CPAs. From 14 to 30, they saw on average another 28% decrease in those CPAs. From 30 to 45, 16%, 6%, 5%, so on. The reason I bring this up is a lot of times when people are launching a new channel, let's say they're not on connected TV today, they'll oftentimes evaluate success very quickly. So they might look at day 14 and say, this CPA is not where I want it to be. They might shut off a campaign a little bit too early, when realistically, they have all of this acceleration and performance that's almost guaranteed to happen if they just give themselves the time to deliver and the time for their AI engine to improve their campaigns. So in addition to optimizations and automation, creative is always going to be a huge performance trigger when it comes to connected TV. So this is really important because we looked at the top 25% of our advertisers and we saw that they had a very specific amount of time that they would allow their creatives to stay live before refreshing them. And that makes sense. 59% of consumers think there are just too many repeated ads on connected TV. So any advertiser who's using CTV really needs to consider ad fatigue as a real potential opportunity cost of having something that is live for too long. So regular creative refreshes are a way to prevent any negative impact from happening that otherwise you wouldn't want to be happening. So when you're thinking about creative and you're thinking about creative refreshes, there's really multiple types of creatives to consider. One is evergreen creatives. So top advertisers, they usually maintain evergreen campaigns, and then they activate seasonal heavy ups. So these are seasonal creatives to capitalize on tent poles, on seasonal events, on sales opportunities, etc. So by having this mix of evergreen campaigns with seasonal campaigns, you're able to maintain a consistent and opportunistic approach, and that creates sustained growth. And so you need a creative strategy that can make sure that sustained growth can happen. So the key is to keep it fresh, but that definition of fresh is going to be different depending on the type of campaign you're running. So we've seen that for evergreen campaigns, our top 25% of advertisers kept those creatives live for 64 days on average. So we would recommend, based off of that, to refresh your evergreen creatives every 2 to 3 months. We also saw that the top 25% of advertisers who activated seasonal pushes, they kept those live for on average 17 days. So plan to update those every 10 to 20 days if you're taking advantage of a tentpole. Now, a lot of times you might hear, oh my gosh, you have to refresh a creative every 2 to 3 months. You have to have all these different variations of creatives. That seems like it could be really expensive. The truth is it absolutely does not have to be. It might sound like a lot of creative, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. We found that small tweaks to creative you already have can actually be enough to make it feel refreshed. So for example, seasonal assets, most of the time, they aren't actually net new videos that anybody's going out and shooting and reproducing. A lot of our top advertisers will actually take their evergreen assets and make some small variations to those that make them more relatable, to the seasonal moment. So for example, Rumple as an advertiser we'll be talking about throughout is a great example of an advertiser who've had success with connected TV. And for their holiday campaign, they actually just took their evergreen asset, swapped in a little bit of a different voiceover and a new end card. And then that was what they were able to use their seasonal push around. So again, not something super expensive. And I find that a lot of advertisers take solace in this because you can see that connected TV can really be as agile as a social platform, which is great because if everybody is doing the same performance marketing goal, you really need that agility to be successful. So when we talk about small tweaks making a big impact, another way it can is the way that you tailor your creative to the specific audience that you're targeting. So again, Rumple had actually two audiences that they wanted to target. One is an aspirationally outdoorsy brand. Rumple creates these wonderful outdoor blankets. The other is this more indoors home and patio brand that likes to think of themselves as being aspirationally outdoorsy, but they do realistically use the blankets more so inside. And so when they created their two different ads, you'll see that only having a couple different shots is all it took for them to be able to speak more organically to that specific customer. So for example, I want to just show a clip of one of these ads. So this will be for the actively outdoorsy audience. Let's restart that. Okay. So it starts in this home. You'll see that she's in a blanket, she's looking outside, and then very quickly they pack things up. They go outside, and then it's just her and her friends. They're on a hike. It's cold, but they're going to make the best of it, and they're going to go swim in this river. Looks like we're having some loading issues, but that is what happens. And so you'll see that is what they ran for their outdoorsy audience. What's really interesting is you'll see that the indoorsy audience, the video was almost identical, save for two different shots. So now she starts by making coffee. They're indoors with the blanket. They're having a conversation. They're a little cozy, and then they pack up and they go outside. And then the rest of the commercial is exactly the same. They're still going to go. They're going to go swimming. They're going to have a great time. I think the takeaway here is that to speak to each of these audiences, they had to just change 1-2 shots taken in the exact same location with the same actors on the same day. So there's no additional costs that you need in order to be bespoke and speak organically to your customers and ultimately deliver better performance. Now, in addition to making sure you're able to keep your creative agile, it's also important to know that creative doesn't have to break the bank. And there are solutions that many advertisers don't know about that can help them save money and reinvest that money back into their media. The first, Mountain offers a unique creative as a subscription offering. This allows advertisers to bundle their creative and media spend in an easy, affordable, and effective way to advertise on CTV. Basically, as long as you advertise on connected TV, you get creatives produced by QuickFrame by Mountain every 2 to 4 quarters, just in addition to your media investment. The second is just going to QuickFrame by Mountain directly. So QuickFrame by Mountain is a creator marketplace that makes it easy to get videos that convert even on a limited budget. So these two options are a great way for you to be able to get the most bang for your buck out of your creative investment and then put as much money as you can from your marketing budget back into delivering outcomes. And that's important because when it comes to creative, sometimes more is more. Having enough creative is essential to delivering the best performance you possibly can. So we took a look again at the top 25% of advertisers who advertise on Mountain. And we saw that brands that use 3+ creative variations on average saw 63% higher return on ad spend and 31% lower cost per visits than advertisers who only launched with one creative. Having that additional 2+ creative variations allows you to speak more organically to your audiences, it allows you to capitalize on the moment, and it allows you to make sure that you're avoiding fatigue for a longer period of time. So I've already mentioned them a bit, but I do want to highlight Rumple's story. So Rumple is a brand that has been really successful using connected TV to drive down funnel outcomes. So they first came to us in Q4 of 2021 to launch a campaign after they were seeing some inefficiencies happen on their paid social side. Apologies. They automatically optimize their campaigns towards KPIs of conversions and revenue. And their first prospecting and retargeting campaigns significantly outperformed their targeted ROAS goals in Q4. You can see that over the entire quarter, they beat the ROAS goal by 13%. And over that key Thanksgiving to Christmas period, they absolutely blew the ROAS goal out of the water. All of that said, we know that when you're joining a new platform in Q4, that's the easiest time it is to be successful. So the reason that we like to use them as an example and we like to kind of ask their marketers what they do and the tactics that they take and learn from them is because they were able to achieve consistent long-term growth for an entire year plus. So over the entire year of 2022, they delivered almost a 3x return on ad spend on average. So that's from Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Their conversion rate was over 7%. They delivered 10,500 plus conversions throughout the year just with performance TV alone. And by using creative as a subscription, which I talked about earlier, they were actually able to save some money on their creative costs, reinvest those back into their media costs, and earn an additional $526.2 thousand of added revenue without increasing their marketing budgets. So it's been really, really cool to see the success that they've been able to achieve and to learn from them as marketers and thought leaders in the space. So before we get to questions, I just want to wrap things up with today's key takeaways. As a reminder, top advertisers, they start by using both prospecting and retargeting campaigns at the same time, because that allows them to both bring in net new customers and grow the lifetime value of their existing customers, ultimately leading to more growth faster. The second is give your campaigns time to deliver at the get-go. It takes 75 to 90 days for advertisers to see accelerated performance due to delivery and optimization. That's not to say you won't see good performance from the get-go. It just means that performance is going to get better the more time you give it. And then third, a campaign of evergreen and seasonal creatives, and enough of it, will accelerate your brand to its highest potential. So with that, I'd like to open the floor to questions, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jon. Yep, we have a few questions that have come in. And the first one's from Jamie. Can you elaborate on why we should run evergreen campaigns? Why don't I just turn my campaigns on during my key business times?
That's a really good question, and one that we have gotten quite a bit. And so it's easy to say that we've seen the best advertisers do this, but I know that as a marketer myself would probably not be enough information for me to be able to accept that and put it into action. What we've actually seen is that evergreen campaigns are a genuine way for you to scale profitably. So one of the pieces of analysis that we did with Rumple was we actually looked at their Q4 2021 campaign and compared it to their Q4 2022 campaign. So they launched in 2021, immediately saw great results. So the next year, they increased their investment over that same period in Q4 2022 by 21%. So most performance marketers, we know that when you increase your investment, your return on ad spend is going to go down on average. You just have to target more people. It's a wider array of people with intent. That's just usually the price of scaling. The difference, though, is that in 2022, they actually had an evergreen campaign lead in to their holiday effort. And so by having that happen, they were actually able to buck that trend and increase their return on ad spend by 15%, along with that increase in investment. So that increased the revenue overall by 40%. So that's a 40% increase in revenue for only a 21% increase in spend. Net, they were able to scale profitably. So not only do we see other advertisers do this, but we see that this is kind of the crux of why they're able to grow year over year, more revenue than what they're spending.
Thanks, Jon. A question from Jason on how they were able to track conversions.
So tracking conversions is pretty simple. So you just place Fountain's Pixel on your conversion point on your site, and you're able to track it directly there. I will say that when it comes to attribution, that is the most important thing when it comes to using a performance-driven connected TV campaign. And so that's why you want to make sure that the conversions that you're tracking through a pixel are conversions that you can trust. And so one of the things that Mountain does specifically is we have this proprietary attribution model called verified visits. And so the way that it works is we use built-in source validation to make sure your TV campaigns are only taking credit for site traffic and conversions that actually delivered. So the way it works, just super quick, is somebody gets your TV ad and then they go visit your site directly. We'll see that connection through our identity graph happened in their household, and we'll say, great, that's a verified visit that was delivered by TV. But if somebody watched your TV ad and then saw your paid social ad, click through that to your website, or they got your email marketing, click through the CTA, went to your website, paid social, what have you, we'll actually look at the referring source and see, well, TV didn't actually deliver that outcome, and we won't take credit for that. So not only is it easy to track via Pixel, it's also really important because we want to make sure that we're only crediting TV for the outcomes it actually delivered. That way your reporting is actionable. Otherwise, you're getting duplicated reporting and it's really hard to make decisions.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Next question. I'm new to CTV advertising and have never made creative for TV screens. Is it possible to repurpose video ads for my social campaigns for CTV?
Yeah, absolutely. So QuickFrame, that's one of the opportunities that they offer. One of their packages is they can take your existing assets and just repurpose them for connected TV. Usually it's just a slight cut down, just some resizing, some remixing of assets. I'm not a video editor, so I don't want to speak in too much detail about how they do it, but I do know that this is a very common thing that a lot of advertisers who are new to CTV do to get on CTV for the first time.
Great. Thanks so much for that. Our next question from Bennett. Actually, it's not from Bennett. It is from Joe. Do you have any tips on the best ways to optimize my campaigns towards my performance KPIs?
Sure. Sorry, Bennett. But Joe, yeah, I mean, there's a few different levers to pull. One, just a quick plug, you do want to use a platform that is optimized towards delivering down funnel KPIs with TV. There are different tech platforms that you can use. Many are optimized towards reach goals, and that's fantastic. If your goal is solely reach, you should go use those. If your goal is to optimize towards down funnel outcomes, you want a platform that was built from the ground up to do that. So they're looking for people who want to convert, and they're driving people to convert. So technology is a big piece. The second is always going to be creative. So you want to have certain best practices in mind. You want your logo present in the corner of the screen at all times. If you have a website and it's and you can organically feature it on the bottom left or right hand corner, you should have a written CTA on the ad. You should have an end card that has a CTA where you just give people a constant reminder of who you are and where they should go after watching the ad. So that's really the big difference between a pure branding campaign and a performance campaign.
Great. Thanks, Jon. Okay, we are going to ask your question, Bennett. Does the same approach taken by an e-commerce company like Rumple work for a service-oriented company?
Justice for Bennett. Happy to answer that question. So I assume when you're talking about a service-oriented company, you mean something, I guess it could be either a B2B company or it could also be a company that is a D2C company, but it is offering a service. So I'll kind of address both at the same time. Net, the answer is yes. This same approaches do apply. It's just going to be where you pixel your conversion point. So your conversion point is going to be, if you're a B2B company, oftentimes on a form fill, it's on a lead that's being generated. If it's a service-oriented company, it'll also be, similar to whatever they sign up for that service. So it's still easy to pixel and drive to those conversions. The best practices I just described on, keeping your logo present, giving clear CTAs, same thing. And then again, with the creative variation piece, that too will apply. And I think that that's really the best opportunity where you as a business can speak organically to your different segments. I think having a bespoke end card for each of your different buyers who will use your service is just a really easy way to make one video and have it be really organic and speak well to each of the different people who use your service. So that was a long way of saying, yes, you can use the same things.
Excellent. Thank you. From Gabrielle, a question about audiences with CTV. Gabrielle says, we have agriculture clients who have insanely niche audiences, such as swine producers. What are your thoughts on reaching our audience?
That's a great question. So I will say, if you use Mountain, we have a unique integration with the Oracle Data Cloud where you have access to 80,000 segments. So we have advertisers from all different walks of life, all different verticals, all different niches, who are able to really hone in on their potential buyers. So I'd be confident that our customer success team could work alongside your team to build an audience that hones in on those buyers as best we can. We also offer the ability to target within specific geos. So you know your customer better than anybody else. And so if they exist within certain areas more than they exist within others, great, let's target them in those geos. I would say something that has been really, really impactful is on connected TV. One of the things that you get that you don't get with paid social is audience segment level reporting. And so what I mean by this is, let's say you're trying your best to target your very, very specific niche audience on Facebook, and you're targeting 20 different segments and you're building an audience. You'll see the overall reporting on that audience, but you won't understand each individual segment that you've tested. When you're using connected TV, specifically through Mountain, you can build an audience, but you'll see each different individual segment and what kind of performance it has delivered. So yes, you can hone in on those specific segments, but you can also test a bunch of different segments that might not be as obvious from the get-go and learn to see, like, okay, is that actually a part of my customer profile? Yes, these are people who, are in this agricultural space, but do they have a crossover interest that would also be good for you to capitalize on? So I think at the end of the day, yes, hone in on your audience, but also use this as an opportunity to learn about your audience, because that's going to make every other channel that you activate on a lot easier.
Okay, great advice. Thanks. From Diana, how often should you add new creatives?
So going back to the presentation, I think it's really more about refreshing them every 2 to 3 months if you are running an evergreen campaign. So I would say 2 to 3 months is a pretty good place. And then for seasonal, I would refresh it every 10 to 20 days. And so typically that should cover off on most seasonal plays. So if you're doing Memorial Day, there you go. You have one seasonal asset, you're good to go, or 3 variations of that seasonal asset. Over the holidays, you want to be a bit more specific. So refresh that creative as you're leading up to Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Black Friday, Cyber Monday, as you're leading up into Christmas. And again, all you have to do is really swap out that end card, maybe swap some VO, make it really simple, but then you can stay on top of the moment and then make sure you're speaking to your customer in the way that they're thinking.
Okay. Next question. We're a B2B brand. Do the rules about needing multiple creative still apply to us?
It's a great question. So the answer is yes, but again, I really want to harp back on the fact that multiple creatives doesn't mean multiple uniquely produced videos. You don't have to go out and shoot 3 videos if you're a B2B company. Make one video, create 3 different end cards, 3 different intro cards, play with your voiceover. Doing that is going to pay dividends at the end of the day. You're not going to be spending extra money on production. It's really simple to swap in and out an end card. But now you can speak specifically to the C-suite. You can speak specifically to the hands-on keys user. And you can just make sure that somebody is seen and understands that what you're selling is relevant to them. So yes, it applies. It doesn't have to be that hard. It can be pretty seamless.
Great. I think we have time for one more question, Jon, but before we do, I just want to let the audience know there are a number of handouts in the handout section. So go ahead and download them if you can. And our last question is, can you speak more to how Rumple generated additional revenue with content as a service?
That is a great question. So Rumple, when they first launched, they did a fantastic job, and they wanted to figure out ways where they could drive additional revenue with Mountain. And so Creative as a Subscription or CAS is this thing that we offer where you just spend money on your media investment, and we give you additional creatives created by QuickFrame to activate. And so What we saw is they were actually able to get creative every quarter that was valued at $52,000 worth of production budget, and then reinvest that $52,000 every quarter back into performance-driving media. So across their different quarters, they delivered anywhere between a 1.5 to 3.6x return on ad spend. And so we multiplied that 52K by that return on ad spend every quarter to see like what was the extra revenue they got just by reinvesting that money. And when all was said and done, it all added up to $526,000, which is pretty awesome. One thing I do want to just say about that. So Rumple has a fantastic in-house creative team, and their creative team still totally ran the show. They wrote the briefs. They had final say on the edit. They had final say on the script. Sometimes they even attended the shoots. All they did now was get time back and money back, so they didn't have to worry about project management, spending that money on ads, and they could reinvest that time and money into making those ads work harder and also producing better assets for their other channels.
All right, Jon, thanks so much. And that concludes today's webinar. If we didn't get to your question, we will be sure to pass it along to the team at MNTN. Thanks again, Jon, for your engaging presentation, and thank you all for joining today's webinar. We hope you join us again soon. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Cynthia.